Good morning, Boston. 6:06 here on the Kuhner Report. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868. I'm back, my friends. Had a nice vacation. It was about 10 days I took off. I needed it. I feel refreshed, re-energized, ready to go. People ask me, Jeff, what did you do on your vacation? Honestly, I slept. And I read about the origins of the Second World War. That's how I party when I go on vacation. So we spent a couple days up Montreal. We went to the True North, went up to Canada, saw some family members. I saw my dad, saw my sister-in-law, my niece, family members, spent a couple of days. Spent some money, took people out to dinner. Everybody had a good time on the Kuhner Man's tab. And basically just lounged around and slept. And read. Slept and read. That's all I basically did. And ate. Slept, read, and ate. And I'm back and I feel like a new man. I feel like 1,000 pounds has been lifted off my shoulder. I gotta tell you, my friends, while I've been away, a hell of a lot has been going on. So, just to get right into it, there is a front page story. You know I'm not a big fan of the Boston Globe, but even a stopped clock is right twice a day. And there is a front page story at the top of the fold. It's by Matt Visor. Hope I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. Few GOP foes for mass delegation. And underneath the subheading says 6 of 9 House seats to go uncontested in November. It's an incredible story. You want to see how bad things have degenerated in this state. This is not Jeff Kuhner saying this. This is the liberal, leftist, pro-Democrat Boston Globe. It's not even an editorial. It's a reporting piece. It's reportage. And so this state has become such a one-party Democratic mafia state that even I swear to you, God is my witness. It's not, Jeff, is it the sunstroke? Did you spend too much time in the sun and you're not right in the head? No, I'm telling you, even the Democrats are now saying, this is pathetic. This is just wrong. We gotta have opposition. There's got to be some political accountability. Even the Globe is saying, no, this is not good for Massachusetts that the Democrats dominate this state like this. So check out this story, okay? According now to Matt Visor in the Boston Globe, the failure of Republicans to field a candidate in 6 of 9 U.S. House races in Massachusetts. That means we're not talking about the state legislature, which apparently is even worse. We're talking about the U.S. Congress. All right, so there's 9 House races in Massachusetts this year. Republicans are not even gonna put somebody on the ballot. Just, I don't know, Joe Sixpack, Joe Schmo. Just grab him off the street, put him, Bill Cooksey. Grab Bill Cooksey, say, you want to run for Congress just for the hell of it, Cooks? Let's put your name down, and you never know. Lightning may strike, you may win. They can't even put a candidate on the ballot in 6 out of 9 races. So, this is the lead. I'm reading to you the lead. Makes this year one of the least competitive congressional election seasons in a half century or more. Now check this out. Highlighting how politically stagnant the state has become, and leaving Democratic incumbents wondering what to do on the campaign trail. The Globe is saying, well, it's going to lead to corruption. It's political stagnation. There's just no opposition. And you have the Democrats, the incumbents, are saying, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Do I put up bumper stickers? It's a waste of money. Nobody's running against me. Lawn signs? It's a waste of money. Fundraising appeals? Who's going to give me money? Who needs to give me money? I'm running unchallenged. And so, according to the Globe, I'm reading now straight from the piece, barring a phenomenal write-in campaign, The only thing most members of the state's delegation have to do to be reelected is keep breathing until November. That's it. Just stay alive. Don't die. And it's yours. Now, check out this quote. This is from U.S. Representative Jim McGovern. Okay, he's a Democrat from Worcester. Quote, this is an incumbent Democrat, a liberal Democrat in Congress, saying this is no good. This is really, the Democrats are saying this is no good. Quote, look, I was fully prepared for a campaign, and I expected one. It just didn't happen. And so you've got McGovern saying he ran unopposed in both the primary and in the general election. The filing deadline has come and gone. Nobody is even willing to challenge this liberal Democrat in Worcester. Quote, this is what he says, quote, for the sake of our democracy, it's not a bad thing to be challenged. But my job is not to find myself an opponent. That's somebody else's job. This is how bad things have become here in the People's Republic of Massachusetts. That you now have Democratic left-wing incumbents saying, somebody should challenge me. Please. I mean, it's not good for our democracy. You gotta have some competition. You gotta have some debate of ideas. You got to have some political accountability, or else you're going to get rampant corruption, rampant political apathy, rampant complacency, and rampant arrogance. And that's exactly what we have in this state. And so now the Globe, if you can read the rest of the piece, I'm sure it's online. It's actually a good reporting piece, where they basically say what changed everything in this state. Yes, it's been a heavily Democratic state for decades. No question about it. It's been a blue state for 30, 40, 50 years. Yes. But with redistricting in 2010, when Bob DeLeo and his corrupt cronies got involved, and they began to redistrict the state, they made sure that they gerrymandered every district so that the Democrats would have a maximum chance of holding a huge majority. And so they're saying that so many Republicans feel there's no chance, we can't win, why bother, that it's fostering political apathy, it's fostering a sense of people not even wanting to go to the polls and vote. But my friends, I gotta tell you, yes, there was gerrymandering. Yes, there was redistricting. Yes, all of that took place. But I want all of you to think about this. As the rest of the country is getting ready for a wave election, whereby Republicans are poised now, according to all the polls. Even the New York Times admits this. The Washington Post admits this. You've got Democratic insiders now in a full panic. You are going to see a political landslide and tsunami come this November. Republican after Republican. They're going to win more seats in the House. They're going to win seats in the Senate. They're poised to take back Congress, both branches of Congress. The whole country is expecting a Republican tidal wave. And here in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, the Republican Party is so weak, is so demoralized, is so apathetic, that they can't even field a candidate in 6 of 9 U.S. congressional races. They can't even put somebody on a ballot. That's how bad things are. This is not just redistricting, my friends. It's what I've been saying now for a long time. When you keep dulling the differences between yourself and the Democrats, when every election cycle, it's how can we be more like the Democrats? We have to be even more moderate and more tolerant and more compassionate. When it's always, can we be even more to the center, even more to the left? Can we take on more of the Democratic Party, more of their issues? Can we be co-opted by them just a little bit more to get the independents, the so-called centrists, the swing voters, the suburban soccer moms? So we'll be pro-choice. We'll be pro-same-sex marriage. We're not going to talk about welfare reform. We're not going to talk about illegal immigration. We're not going to talk about EBT fraud. No, 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 no. We're not going to talk about cutting taxes. No, 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 no. We have to become more like the Democrats. So what happens? You have a choice between Tweedledoo and Tweedledum to go, let me give me the real thing. If you're going to give me a Democrat and Democrat light, I'm going to go for the Democrat. And this is what I have been saying for years. What people crave is a real alternative. What people crave, what inspires people, why people get up and vote at the polls. And I said this to Cooksey before I got on the show today. I said, Cooks, why is it that the Republican Party is collapsing here in Massachusetts, but for some reason this show is growing? Please don't get me wrong. I believe it is a sin to be arrogant and boastful, okay? As a Christian, as a Catholic. But Cooksey called me up yesterday. I'm driving back. We're coming back from Montreal. By the way, the kids were driving me insane in the car, but let that go. Yelling, screaming. They want to eat. They want this. The portable DVD player. She wants Tom and Jerry. He wants Transformers. Anyway, I swear I was going to pull my hair out, but let that go. So as I'm trying to have a conversation with Cooksey in the car with my two little ones screaming in the back, I said, Cooksey called. He says, Jeff, you're not going to believe this. We got the latest book in. The ratings keep going up and up and up. We're growing even in the summertime. And I'm like, Cooks, think about this. The Republican Party is imploding. The Republican Party can't even field candidates in 6 of 9 congressional races. Forget the state legislature, it's even worse. But this show keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What's the problem here? What's the discrepancy? It's obvious. The people in this state want an alternative. They want to they want to be inspired. They're tired of voting against Democrats, against liberals. They want to start voting for someone. Gabe Gomez didn't get people out to vote. Charlie Baker, if you're listening, Charlie, your campaign of being vanilla is not going to work. Every time we run as moderate Republicans or as liberal Republicans or as Democrat light, not only do we lose, not only do Republicans lose, my friends, it's even worse than that. People don't even bother to run as candidates. And that's why you're seeing the systematic destruction of the Massachusetts Republican Party. Because in the end, the Republican Party in this state stands for nothing. So, let me give the Republicans a tip. Because Republicans are doing well in almost every other state in the union. Try running on cutting taxes. Try defending the middle and working class of this country. Why don't you campaign against illegal immigration? Why don't you campaign against EBT fraud? Why don't you campaign against the rampant misuse of welfare? Why don't you campaign against Obamacare? Why don't you campaign against the corruption of the Democratic Party? And maybe before you know it, people who listen to this show will come out and start voting. As they voted for the model for Scott Brown when he ran against Martha Coakley. In other words, give them a reason to vote for you. It means principle. It means having a spine. It means standing for something. Try it. You may like it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Jeff Kuhner, back in the saddle, my friends. My question to you is this. What do you make of the fact that the Republican Party is so weak that it will not field 6 of 9 candidates in House seats, in House races this November? Is the Republican Party essentially dead in Massachusetts? And what do we need to do to revive it? Can it be saved? 617-266-6868. If you don't vote Republican, tell me why. 621 on the great WRKO. All of your calls next. 624 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Back, refreshed, re-energized, ready to go from a nice 10-day vacation. 617-266-6868 is the number. Let me ask you this, my friends. Incredible story in today's Boston Globe. Even the Globe is saying it is bad for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for the People's Republic of Massachusetts, that there is no competition to the Democratic Party. Now it appears Republicans are not even going to field a candidate in 6 of 9 U.S. House congressional races this year. So Republicans are going to win big almost everywhere else, but here it remains a sea of blue. 617-266-6868. Jim, you're up first. Thanks for holding. You're on the Kuhner Report, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. First of all, welcome back.
Oh, thank you so much, Jim.
It's good to hear you. You're right generally, but let me point out some good news. Down in that congressional district, you want a conservative. Mark Allegro is a conservative. Take a look at him. He is a scientist, smart guy. Let me give you some good news on the local level. I don't know what the American Legion or VFW has been doing down in the South Shore, but right down the line in the 4th Plymouth, which is Marshfield, you've got a guy named Jim Pavlik. He's a retired Marine colonel, Republican conservative. 5th Plymouth, you've got a guy named Dave DeCoste. He's a retired 22-year Army major. Norwell Selectman, that's Rockland, Hanover, Norwell. And then right down in the 6th Plymouth, which is Duxbury Hanson in Pembroke. You got another conservative, Republican, Joe Sheehan, all running for state rep. Joe is a lieutenant in the Army National Guard. As a matter of fact, he even has a haircut. He looks the part. So the bottom line is, if you live down the South Shore, south of Hingham, you've got some great candidates for state representative, and you got a great candidate in Mark Allegro to run against Keating.
Jim,
so some areas of the state are getting off their rear end.
Yes. No, Jim, you nailed it, and thank you for that call, Jim. Now, look, here is what I think is happening, okay? Call this the Kuhnerization of the Massachusetts conservative movement and the Massachusetts Republican Party. What you're going to see happening is as the moderate, centrist, establishment GOP withers and dies on the vine, you are going to see fresh, articulate, conservative candidates grow up. They're going to just spring up everywhere. And you're seeing, look at, you got Mark Lombardo, you've got Jim Lyons, you've got Leah Cole, they're coming out of the woodwork. And so eventually what's going to happen is the Republican Party is going to get more conservative. It's going to regain its principles. It's going to go back to its roots, and then it's going to become more viable. And mark my words, forget Charlie Baker. Whatever happens this election, the real force is what comes after Charlie. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I believe that this is the last stand of the old guard. What you're seeing now with Charlie Baker, who won't take a stand on any issue, and he's got to be vanilla, and he doesn't want to offend the Democrats. Welfare reform, we need a commission, and illegal immigration, I don't want to talk about it, and he doesn't want to touch the scandals too much, and I'm just Charlie, and I'm a manager, and if you want a manager, elect Charlie, and where's Charlie? I don't know where Charlie is, but Charlie's somewhere. That's gone. I'm telling you, that's gone. And the future is what comes after him. And I'm telling you, with the crop of Republicans that are now coming up, who are combative, who are feisty, who are articulate, who are willing to take on the Democratic machine, in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you are going to see a revitalized Republican Party, and by the time the next election cycle comes around, you will not see Charlie Baker, but you will see other Republicans, conservatives, who will take the fight to the Democrats, and suddenly, before you know it, the Democrats will have a war on their hands. Dan, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Welcome.
Jeff, good morning and welcome back.
Oh, thanks so much, Dan. It's great to be back.
Jeff, as far as what has happened with the Republican Party, I think you've nailed it right on the head. As far as what is going to happen, I'm hoping you're right. I'm a Republican, and I've sat and we watch the national scope of things, and we are absolutely appalled when we see some of the campaigns, such as what went on with that Cochran in that election and with that runoff race. And we're sitting here watching the GOP not really fight, but just wanting to get along and water down everything. And essentially, like as you said, there is no difference between the two campaigns, two camps.
Look, Dan, I'll be honest with you. If I'm a liberal voter, if I'm a moderate voter, if I'm here in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, I'd vote for the Democrats if I were them. Why would I vote for Me Tooism? Why do I want to vote for a Johnny-come-lately? Look, I've always said this before. If you've got one drink at a bar, do you go for the Sam Adams or do you go for the Sam Adams Light? Do you go for the Bud or the Bud Light? I go for the Bud. I go for Miller. I don't go for Miller Light. So, let me tell you what comes after Charlie Baker. Even, think about this. What if we had Shauna O'Connell as the Republican standard bearer? Ho-ho! It would be her race to lose. And not only would she defeat whoever it is, Coakley, Grossman, whatever, you would see many more candidates rushing to join the Republican Party because now you've got a champion, you've got a warrior. 617-266-6868. Is the Republican Party dead? And what will it take to revitalize it here in the People's Republic of Massachusetts? 617-266-6868, 631 on RKO. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom. 637 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, back, my friends, from a much-needed vacation. I'm rested, refreshed, slightly tanned, and ready to go. Well, okay, Brittany says I'm not tanned. For me, it seems like I'm tanned. You know, I took some sun, but that's just me, Brittany. 617-266-6868 is the number. Front page in today's Boston Globe. The Republican Party is in such disarray. They are running such an incompetent organization in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, they are not even going to field candidates for U.S. House races, congressional races, in 6 of the 9 races. They're not even putting somebody on the ballot. I was telling this to Cooksey. Cooks, what the hell? Why don't you run? Is somebody from Brookline, if anybody's interested, I'd love for somebody to run against that fraud, Joe Kennedy III. He's got nothing. He has no competition whatsoever. And so he's laughing, and he's telling the Globe, he's smiling, oh, this is a great problem to have. I don't have anybody running against me. This is my second run for office, and it's great that I got nobody to challenge me. And so they're asking him, well, are you going to campaign? Is there even any point in campaigning? Yeah, sure, I'll do a little campaigning. What the hell? In fact, he says, quote, I haven't totally figured out what the options and the strategy will be going forward. You don't need an option. You don't need a strategy. Nobody's running against you. And it's in 6 of the 9 congressional races. Here is Stuart Rothenberg. Check this out, okay? He's a nonpartisan political analyst. He tracks congressional races. There's him and the Cook Political Report. Those are the 2 big, they're called handicappers. These are the guys that look at races, who's going to win, who's going to lose. This is Stuart Rothenberg saying how sad and pathetic it is in the state of Massachusetts. Quote, that's kind of sad. I mean, it means either people don't care or the idea of beating an incumbent is so foreign that no one even bothers, quote unquote. It's like the Republicans have become the Chicago Cubs. The Massachusetts Republican Party has become the Chicago Cubs of American politics. You've lost before you've even gotten onto the field. And Richard Tassay, God bless him, is going to challenge John Tierney again. At least somebody is challenging somebody somewhere. Now, you want to know what the problem is with the Republican Party? Check this out. Tierney, who, by the way, just so that you understand on the issues, is pro-choice, he's pro-abortion rights, he's gay rights, he's pro-same-sex marriage, he's basically very friendly to the environmental agenda. He's certainly not a hawk when it comes to the border. In other words, he's pro-gun control on issue after issue after issue, especially social issues. He's a down-the-line liberal. The only thing is, he's not a crook. He's running against a crook, literally a crook, John Tierney. Now he says he's going to run an aggressive campaign against Tierney. He's going to really highlight the corruption and the racketeering that took place within Tierney's family. Now he's going to hammer Tierney on all of the illegalities and criminal activities that took place. And all I'm thinking to myself is, when the scandal broke and you ran against him in 2012, you didn't decide to hit him hard then? And so Tierney has now come out and said, no, I made a mistake. I should have been more aggressive. But you see, I didn't want to alienate the independent voters. I didn't want to alienate the moderates. God bless the moderates. Because if I went after Tierney too hard, you can't go negative. Richie, you can't go negative, not in Massachusetts. Notice the Dems have no problem going negative. So here you have literally a crook. And Richard Tassay lets him off the hook in 2012. And now, 2014, when the scandal is already in the rearview mirror, now he wants to go tough after him. He should have gone tough right away. He should have been everywhere saying, in Tierney's district, saying, I'm not a crook. You want somebody who's a crook? He's your man. You want somebody who won't steal money? I'm your man. Now, you want to see how bad things are in this state? Again, front page story, Boston Globe. It's been being covered now the last couple days. Forgive me if I'm rehashing old news. I was away for a week. You know why I call him Porky Pig Bob DeLeo? Because he's one of the most corrupt. He does pork barrel spending. He's one of the most corrupt politicians up on Beacon Hill. He even sounds like Porky Pig. Okay, he sounds like a mixture of Elmer Fudd and Porky Pig. You have the probation department trial. Closing arguments are tomorrow. Now we've come out through all of this testimony, 60 witnesses, 35 days, nonstop testimony. The Democratic hacks, led by John O'Brien, hack number one, were running the probation department under the full knowledge and cover of the Democratic Party on Beacon Hill as a criminal enterprise. And now the prosecutor, Carmen Ortiz, finally is stating what everybody on Beacon Hill has known for years. This had Bob DeLeo's fingerprints all over it. And so now Carmen Ortiz has now come out and said, I want you to think about this, that the Speaker of the House was giving out favors to any legislator. You want your nephew, you want to give your nephew a job in the probation department, $85,000 a year? No problem. But you got to vote for me as House Speaker. To this one. You want your uncle, your aunt, your sister needs a job? No problem. But I need you to vote for me as House Speaker. It was naked bribery. It was quid pro quo. You vote for Bob DeLeo, and you vote the way Bob wants you to vote on issue after issue, and he'll get your cousins, he'll get your brothers, he'll get your sisters, he'll get your aunts, he'll get your uncles, he'll get your third cousins, he'll get your buddies, your best friends, your best man at your wedding, your maid of honor, whatever you want, they'll get a job at the probation department. $60, $70, $80, $90, $100,000 a year that we pay for out of our money. And every lawyer in that room is rightly asking the question, why are these three hacks, low-level Democratic hacks, why are they the ones on trial? How come the legislators aren't on trial? How come the legislators who participated in this scheme, who were involved in the bribery, how come Bob DeLeo is not being tried for bribery and racketeering and corruption? How come he's not in the dock? And at a minimum, here I go back to the Republican Party. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You have all of this incredible, monstrous corruption, outrageous corruption. Where's Brad Jones? Where's House Minority Leader Brad Jones? How come Brad Jones is not on the airwaves and on radio day after day demanding that Bob DeLeo resign and step down? At a minimum, Bob DeLeo should be forced to resign and step down. Instead, lay down and love me again, Boehner Brad. Because he and DeLeo are buddies. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. And so the public looks at this and says, well, if you're going to have basically a non-existent, effete Republican Party, I call them French Republicans, they just put up their hands and surrender, and you have these corrupt Democrats, I'm not going to bother voting for the Republicans. You have one of the most outrageous scandals whereby an entire department was being staffed by political cronies, where they pretended to actually look for the best person for the job. All of this being done, a conspiracy, a criminal enterprise, paid for by our taxpayer dollars to give every major politician on Beacon Hill a job for their friend, relative, family member, whatever. And Bob DeLeo was the motivating force behind this? And he's not being tried? No charges against him? You don't even have Republicans calling for Porky Pig to step down? Now you know why nobody wants to vote for the Republican Party. 617-266-6868 is the number. Enrique, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I'm glad that you are back.
Oh, thank you so much, Enrique.
No problem. Hey, Jeff, the reality is that in Massachusetts in this election there is no competition. You have Charlie Baker and then all the Democratic candidates that represent exactly the same. If I'm going to vote, I'm going to vote for Charlie Baker because it's slightly he's better than the other candidate. However, Charlie Baker doesn't answer anything. He cannot tell me any of his positions. Now, I would like to tell you, Jeff, I don't know if you agree with me. There is a segment of the population that is the growing segment, minority population in the United States, which is the Hispanics.
Yes.
The Hispanics usually coming from countries that are very conservative. The reason that many of them changed here is, number one, they feel that the Republican Party doesn't offer anything to them, and they are not included in the party, or whatever is the reason, whether it's correct or it's a bad perception. Now, I think that the Republican Party has to work hard to win the Hispanics. Now, the other part is that when Hispanics come to this country, they are bombarded by the Democratic Party, who are offering a lot of goodies to them. And I don't suggest the Republican Party has to be offering things like welfare, EBTs, or anything like that. But there should be a way, or part of the strategy of the Republican Party has to be winning the Hispanic population, because those are the new voters that are out there that technically they're coming from conservative countries, and they tend to be conservative until they are faced with the reality here. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Look, you're right. Look at the Cubans in South Florida. Overwhelmingly conservative, overwhelmingly Republican. The problem that most Republicans have is they don't know how to go into Hispanic communities and tailor their message to them to attract Latino voters. You put Jeff Kuhner in a Latino audience, I'm telling you, I'm going to convert them into Republicans, or at least conservatives. And I'll tell you exactly how I would do it. I'd say, you know what the Democrats want to do? They want to turn America into Mexico. You see the government that you left in Mexico? That's what they want here. You see the government that you left in Brazil? That's what they want here. You see the government that they have in Guatemala? That's what they want here. Is that what you want? And they go, ooh, I didn't understand that. And that's how you appeal to them. In other words, speak to them in a language that they'll understand. 617-266-6868, 650 on the great WRKO. Should Bob DeLeo be forced to resign? And is it time that he and other Democrats on Beacon Hill be charged with bribery and corruption? I want to hear from you, my friends. 617-266-6868. All of your calls next. .657 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. My friends, I'm back. Kevin, you're on the Kuhner Report. Go, my friend.
Thank you, Jeff. Jeff, we have a number of things going on here. After all, this weekend I was to the heavens, should I say, over the dark side of the moon, when I found out that Brad Jones does not have a contender to unseat this guy. What's going on is the bullying that's here in this state. We have laws against that. Why is it that Martha Coakley never does anything to indict any one of these, whether it be local, city government, how many members of Boston City Council, to that corrupted Golden Dome? Okay, you said, it took you 3/4 of an hour, and I'm like, is he not going to bring up the probation department? Finally, John Henry of the Boston Globe has been running story after story, page after page, with DeLeo in the headlines, right up in the hot seat at the federal courthouse in New England. Why is it that so many are leaving? We've had now 4 speakers in a row. Pretty much the only one that escaped an indictment, he was so short, was Billy Bulger's brother, William, that ran this state. Scott Brown, that moved up to Driftfoot to New Hampshire. He was underneath that Golden Dome for 16 years. Jeff, you know what's going on in your house, in your complex there at Entercom. I would know if that was my place of business or work. We need a pillar. We need people to stand up. Charlie Baker is just so silent. This is why the Republican Party does not have anyone of motivators. The Kuhner Report can only go so far, but we need help.
Now, you nailed it. Look, you know, people in the States say, oh, Jeff, we've cleaned up organized crime. You know, Whitey Bulger, the Irish mob, the Italian mob. We chased them all out of Boston. No, you didn't. You chased them into Beacon Hill. They just became respectable politicians. What is Bob DeLeo but a crook? And so you have the prosecutor, Carmen Ortiz, openly saying for 10 weeks, witness after witness after witness, oh, it's all quid pro quo. Bob DeLeo was the guy running the whole thing. You want a job? No, I'll get you a job. But, you know, you got to vote for me. So how come he's not on trial? And to me, if I'm a Republican and you have this kind of bribery, racketeering, the probation department being run as a criminal enterprise, and the House Speaker was behind it, allegedly, how come you're not calling for his head? With friends like this, who needs enemies? 617-266-6868, 7 o'clock on WRKO. Coming up next, is there a major ground war coming up in the Middle East, in the Gaza Strip? We'll talk about that. Israel is going to war, my friends. We'll have the latest. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom.
News at the top and bottom. Talk in between.
Yes, it is. Thank me very much. Go right ahead, my friend.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.
7:05 here on the great WRKO, and now on 93.7 HD2. Hour 2 of the Kuhner Report, 617-266-6868. You can also text us, as always, 680-680. The Kuhner man is back from vacation, had a nice 10 days, slept a lot, did a lot of reading as well. This is how I relax. This is how I party when I'm on vacation. Was reading A.J.P. Taylor's Origins of the Second World War, and just basically had a good time with La Familia, and went up to Montreal for a couple days, saw some family, saw some friends, went to a couple of restaurants. Now, even up in Montreal, okay, even up in La Belle Province, as they say, the province of Quebec, the beautiful province, people were livid about what's happening in the Middle East. And as many of you know, this is a problem affecting not just Europe, it's affecting Canada, increasingly here in the United States. You have an influx of massive Muslim immigration. And in particular, when I was there in Montreal, I could not believe how huge enclaves, pockets were of recent Muslim immigrants from Morocco, from Egypt, from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from Tunisia, from Algeria, you name it. Women with burqas everywhere. Hijabs, the headscarf everywhere. Usually accompanied with 3, 4, or 5 children. And everywhere we went, Grace and I took the kids to a McDonald's. They like to play in the kid area. They like to play on the slide in the McDonald's play area. And that's all they were talking about was the conflict in the Middle East, the airstrikes now being launched by Israel upon the Gaza Strip. And the anger is palpable. They despise the Jews, and they hate the Jewish state. And so here, my friends, is what is going on. In response to the kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teenagers, young men who were hitchhiking after they went to their studies. They were all of them were studying to eventually get into some as religious leaders or rabbis. And so on their way from religious studies, they hitchhike. I don't know why, but it's like Europe. In Israel, they hitchhike. This was done in the in the West Bank. They were kidnapped and then murdered by Palestinian terrorists, most likely Hamas. This story gripped Israel for days as they were desperately searching for the teenagers. It was on the hour, every hour, with updates on the whereabouts of these 3 teenagers. Eventually, they were found dead, all 3 of them. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, rightly vowed that the Hamas leadership, that the Islamic fundamentalists and terrorists who oversee and run the Gaza Strip will pay a severe price for the deliberate slaughter of Israeli civilians. Over the last 6 days, Israel has now launched airstrike after airstrike after airstrike, in particular targeting Hamas military headquarters, Hamas military targets, and many of the launching pads that Hamas uses to propel rockets and missiles into Israel. Hamas has now taken to the airwaves, and they are now waging a propaganda campaign vowing a holy war against Israel. And they are in fact inviting Israel to launch a major ground offensive, saying that they will kidnap Israeli soldiers, they will behead Israeli soldiers, they will murder Israeli soldiers. And so now on Hamas television and on Hamas radio, you have individuals coming on, for example, on Saturday evening, on the Hamas Al-Aqsa TV, prime time, 8 in the evening. Okay, this is what passes for news and information in a terrorist hellhole like Gaza. The voice of Abu Ubaida, who comes on, he's always masked, he always wears a mask, he's wearing camouflage fatigues, he is the spokesman for Hamas's armed wing, bragged about raining rockets and missiles upon Tel Aviv and upon Jerusalem. And after he bragged about this impending massive rocket missile attack, loudspeakers of the Gaza mosque blared, because apparently then after an hour later, rockets were then directed towards Jerusalem and towards Tel Aviv. A loudspeaker at the Gaza mosque blared, quote, "Our rockets have struck Tel Aviv." The moment that news was announced to the people of Gaza, young children, many of them as young as 5 and 6 years of age, began dancing on the streets. Roars of men and boys could be heard from the windows of houses. Allah is great, Allah is great, Allah is great. Contrary to their propaganda, what is now stunning, not just the Palestinian leadership, not just the leaders of Hamas, but all of the other Muslim leaders across the Middle East, is that Israel's Iron Dome defense system has been shooting down rocket after rocket after rocket. Their anti-missile defense system is working. And so even though Hamas has now rained nearly 1,000 rockets upon Tel Aviv or Jerusalem to inflict massive civilian damage, so far, according to Western media reports and Israeli media reports, not one Israeli has yet been killed. On the Palestinian side, about 160 have died. Some are now saying 168. Anyway, at least 160 have now died. What the Palestinians are doing is they are using women and children in particular as human shields to protect their missile launchers, their rocket launchers, and their military targets. This is a tactic that they have been using for decades to elicit sympathy from the West and to break the moral back of Israel, at least in the eyes of the international community. Israel is now amassing troops at the border with Gaza. They have just sent in a special forces incursion team into Gaza Strip for a limited raid. They have pulled the troops back. But now the big concern is, will Israel launch a major, broad ground offensive? Because if they do, then Israeli soldiers can start coming back home in body bags, and it will be a full-scale war. Hamas is now threatening to wage guerrilla war, street to street, house to house, block to block, threatening to kill and bleed Israel right there in the Gaza Strip. The whole world is now looking at this as a potential flashpoint for a possible larger Middle East war. Now, let me be clear, my friends. I don't like it when civilians die. When I see civilians being killed in any war, it disgusts me to my very core. The question, though, has to be asked. Who is the aggressor and who is the victim? And there is no getting around this fact that Hamas, since its inception, since it won elections to rule and govern the Gaza Strip, in every broadcast, in every radio broadcast, in every TV broadcast, in every newspaper article, every editorial that they control in state-run media, they have consistently called for the destruction of Israel and the Jewish state. They're not calling for an independent Palestine in the West Bank and Gaza. I want to be very clear about this, because that's a big myth. They are calling for the utter eradication and destruction of Israel itself. As they put it, we want to drive Israel into the sea. Who has been launching rockets and missiles indiscriminately against Israel over the last couple of years? Hamas. Who has called for a holy war against the Jews? Hamas. Who has said repeatedly we cannot live in peaceful coexistence with the state of Israel, the Zionist entity as they put it? Hamas. Who is the one that kidnapped those 3 Jewish boys and murdered them in cold blood? Hamas. Israel has every right to defend itself and to do what it needs to cripple Hamas's military capabilities so they can keep Israeli civilians safe. Israel, in other words, is like any other nation in the world. It has a right to defend itself. And what is to me incredible is when you look at all of much of the liberal media coverage, they keep referring to the Israeli offensive, the Israeli military campaign, as if somehow, or Israeli military aggression. Are you kidding me? It is the Jews of Israel who are defending themselves. This is a response to repeated attacks and repeated provocations and repeated atrocities by Hamas. So what are the Jews of Israel supposed to do? Okay, you keep killing our boys? Keep killing our teenagers? Keep launching missiles attacks? Keep launching rockets into cafes and residential areas, and we'll just stand back and do nothing? If I were Bibi Netanyahu, I would wage an all-out military offensive that would crush the ability of Hamas or anybody else in the Gaza Strip to ever wage war against Israel again. And to make this lesson be taught to anybody else who threatens or seeks to destroy Israel. Because the real issue here, my friends, is not the Gaza Strip. It's Iran. And if you've noticed, there is one party that has been notoriously and conspicuously absent, and that is Hezbollah. Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran, and solidarity with Hamas, has not been raining down rockets and missiles on the northern part of Israel from Lebanon, because they are now trapped in a civil war in Syria. Hezbollah is now completely preoccupied with what's happening in Syria. Iran is now watching. How far can you push the Israelis? How much can you taunt and threaten and provoke the Israelis? And if Benjamin Netanyahu wants to do what's best for Israel, my advice to him is you teach the Palestinians a lesson and you teach the Iranians a lesson they will never forget. That if you decide to attack Israel, if you decide to slaughter innocent Jewish blood, you will pay a tremendous military price. And so if I was Bibi Netanyahu right now calling the shots, I would go in for an all-out ground invasion. I would literally decimate the Hamas leadership. I would wipe them out. I would cripple their ability to ever wage war again. I would take out every missile launcher, every rocket launcher, every bunker, every military building, once and for all. And then tell to the rest of the Muslims in the Middle East, don't mess with Israel. 617-266-6868 is the number. As this is going on, to show you how Europe is becoming Eurabia, what happens when you bring in uncontrolled amounts, vast amounts of immigrants from Islamist hotbeds in France, in Paris, in Paris. Clashes have now broken out between thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters, most of them Muslim, young Muslim Arab men. They're wearing a kafia, the kind of the Palestinian headscarf, the Arab headscarf, wrapped in Palestinian flags, and they are now clashing with police in Paris. Synagogues in Paris have now been attacked. Several Jews had to be taken in an ambulance. They are now deliberately targeting Jews and synagogues in Paris and across France. The French have nothing to do with this. These animals are rampaging across the streets of Paris, targeting Jews, targeting Jewish synagogues, fighting with the French, looting shops, destroying destroying cars and shop fronts, And this has absolutely nothing to do with the French. Anti-Semitism is spreading like a cancer. And our multicultural liberal elites have been importing it into the West, here, Canada, and Europe for decades. And now there is not just an intifada raging in Gaza. There is now an intifada raging in Paris, and my friends, pretty soon, if we're not careful, in London and capitals all across Europe. And so my question to you is this. Do you side with Israel, or do you side with the Palestinians? And what should Bibi Netanyahu do? Should he escalate his attacks, or should he retreat? 617-266-6868. Is it time for a ceasefire, or is it time for Israel to fight? I want to hear from you. 721 here on the Great WRKO. All of your calls next. 725 here on the Great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Israel may be preparing for a major ground offensive. Troops are now amassing at the border between the Gaza Strip and Israel. Baby Netanyahu may be going in for the kill. Let me ask all of you this. Do you support Israel, or do you think the Palestinians are right? 617-266-6868. Rena, thanks for holding and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Welcome back. You really did come back in a very exciting time. I'm in northern Israel, and there have been rockets from Hezbollah landing in northern Israel, but like most things, it just doesn't make the media. And there haven't been that many, but there definitely have been a few.
Okay, I was going to ask you this, because the media is saying that like only 2 rockets were launched from Hezbollah. You're saying it's more than that?
I'm saying that I think there was more than 2, yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's the same thing. I was listening on the news this morning, and it said that for 6 days Hamas has been firing rockets, and for 6 days Israel has been shelling. Well, that's not quite the way it's been happening. Since the ceasefire in 2012 between Israel and Hamas, Hamas has shelled Israel over 500 times. Now, I disagree with you on one thing, and that is I'm not sure that the boys and the killing of the boys was really the reason for this. I'm not saying that it didn't help or wasn't one of the reasons behind, but after getting 500 rockets and over 1 million people are sitting in shelters for months on end, there has to come a time when our government has to start taking action. And I hope we don't, on one hand, I hope we don't go in, because I do believe Hamas has the whole border booby-trapped. They are known for doing this, and I don't think any of their leadership is any longer even in Gaza. And if they are, they have bunkered themselves underneath hospitals. They bunkered themselves underneath mosques. There have been some videos lately, Jeff, that have come out from the Palestinian side, from the Gaza side, from Hamas side, showing exactly how they launch rockets from carts that look like they've been used to sell bagels on the street in Jerusalem. I mean, it's totally unbelievable. It's totally unbelievable. The people in Gaza are being held hostage by Hamas, not by Israel, but by Hamas. I've seen it. I saw it when I was in South Lebanon in 1982, and I saw how the Palestinian Liberation Army at that time planted their ammunition dumps in the middle of refugee camps, so that every time Israel would try to bomb the ammunition dump, they would unfortunately kill refugees, because that's the way the Arabs think, and that's what they're trying to do. The whole BDS movement, the whole Presbyterian Church movement, all of these people have absolutely, I would welcome anybody. I'd love to take people on tours of Israel to show them exactly what is going on here, and I'd love to show them how the only country in the entire Middle East where a woman can walk around in either a burqa or a bathing suit is Israel. It's the only country in the Middle East where you can have a synagogue, a church, and a mosque is Israel. You can't do that in any other country. It's abominable.
Rena, I have to ask you this. As an Israeli living in northern Israel, there's a big fear that if Netanyahu moves in with the ground offensive, if he sends in boots on the ground, that, as you put it, the Gaza Strip is booby-trapped. They're waiting to pick off the Israeli boys one by one, bleed them to death. Hamas is vowing a vicious guerrilla war. They said they're going to turn the Gaza Strip into Stalingrad. Are you worried that Israeli troops, many of them, are going to die if there's a ground offensive?
Of course I am. There's no doubt about it, which is why Netanyahu has not done it up until now. They're waging a very successful war from the air. And they're also advising people, look, we're about to strike. If you value your lives, please run. There are a number of United Nations camps and schools in northern Gaza now that have been open. I think there's thousands and thousands of people fleeing. At the very beginning of this, some of the Hamas leaders said to people, we've just been notified, people, that the Israelis are coming to bomb my house. Please quickly come. And they all gathered on the roof, and they all died. The people who are being killed are not the civilians. They are the terrorists. And the Arabs are known throughout the world, although people don't want to admit it. The BBC finally did admit it recently, that most of what you see on social media, most of what you see everywhere, as far as the atrocities that are taking place in Israel today or in Gaza today, are not from this area at all. They're what's going on in Iraq, they're what's going on in Afghanistan, they're what's going on in places, and they're not only from now, they're from years ago. And people just have to wake up and realize this is a very sophisticated war, not only on the military level, television, the left wing. It's all tied together. Nothing is independent anymore.
Rena, listen, I'm up against it. I have to go, but I got to ask you one quick final question.
Sure.
Your leader, President Barack Hussein Obama, has told Bibi Netanyahu, hey, slow down. He's told Israel to behave with restraint, to be cautious, to not use excessive force. How is Obama being viewed in Israel right now in the midst of this war?
You know what? Nobody listens to him. Nobody could care less. Kerry is an idiot. They're all idiots. If you think you can make peace with people who are coming to kill you, I'm sorry, they're not. The only people who keep refusing to make peace are the Palestinians. They do it time and again and time and again. And whenever there's a ceasefire, Israel bends over backwards. They tried to not build settlements. They tried not to do this. And every time we get stabbed in the back again. So I think it's time for Israel to stand up and say, guys, you've crossed our red line. Enough's enough.
Rena, thank you so much for your call. And stay safe, Rena.
Welcome. Take care, Jeff.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. 617-266-6868. Do you side with Israel or do you side with Hamas? I want to hear from you, Boston. My friends, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Israel shall fight and Israel shall be right. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom.
Well, whether we're at the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning, I'm not going to tell you that right now because we face a very, very brutal terrorist enemy. I mean, here's the difference between us. We're using missile defense to protect our civilians, and they're using their civilians to protect their missiles. That's basically the difference. They're embedding these rockets that they're firing wholesale into our cities, terrorist rocketing, trying to kill as many as they can. They're not succeeding.
7:39 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, the voice of the resistance. 617-266-6868. For 6 days, Israel has now been launching a bombing campaign hitting major military targets across the Gaza Strip. They're also amassing a lot of Israeli troops along the border with Gaza. People are now saying it could be now the prelude of a massive military ground campaign. which could lead to many people being killed, both Palestinians and Israeli soldiers. Hamas is now taken to the airwaves. They are now taunting Israel, saying they're going to bleed Israel to death in the Gaza Strip, fight them street by street, house by house, block by block. Rockets are now raining upon Israel. The Iron Dome defense system has shot down many of those rockets. My question to you is this. Do you blame Israel or do you blame Hamas? Who do you side with? 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Let's go to Michael. You're up first. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I have a few points here.
Sure.
First of all, I want to compliment you on taking a vacation to a country with an international moral backbone. Canada came out with a statement, and Canada condemns the brazen and indiscriminate attacks of Hamas and continues to wage war in Israel. That's from their foreign minister. And they further clarify, Canada believes that Israel has every right to defend itself. In the meantime, Obama is complimenting Abbas and with no bilateral compliments. And I want to make just a few more points here.
Sure.
It's Obama's weakness that may lead to escalation. Imagine if, now that a few missiles are coming from Lebanon, had Obama condemned this, had Obama, without risking one U.S. soldier, just moved an aircraft carrier to the area, it would be a message saying, let them resolve their conflict, no escalations because we're behind Israel. But see what Obama's doing? He's doing nothing. A few other points. The mosque that was blown up, it didn't blow up like a normal building. It blew up like very big. I mean, so that's one thing. The other thing is Israel is setting a new standard on a moralistic war. Who goes in and drops leaflets saying, hey, if you're innocent, get out. We're going to come in there and we're going to clean it out, and giving them that option. One final point. My daughter happens to be in Israel on an internship program. A siren went off. She jumps in a bunker. This other Palestinian goes in as well, and they get to talk, and he goes, I'm sorry for what my people are doing to you. So there is a glimmer of hope there, in Israel, that there are a few people. But I especially want to call just about this point about Obama.
Thank you very much, Michael. Look, there's no question about it. I've been saying this now for years. And now people are starting to finally come around and say, you know what, Jeff? I thought you were crazy then. Now I see you were completely right. He's a cultural Muslim. His father was a Muslim. His stepfather was a Muslim. By his own admission in his autobiography, he went to a predominantly Muslim religious school, a madrasa. He has read the Quran. He prays in Arabic. I mean, it's obvious from his experience, from his background, from his sympathies. He can't stand the Jewish state. For him, he sees Hamas as freedom fighters, just as he sees the Taliban as freedom fighters, just as he sees the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Islamo-Nazis in Tehran. He sees them as legitimate expressions of an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist struggle against the West. So we know where the dear leader stands on these issues. Notice, he has not condemned Hamas nowhere near as harshly as he condemns Israel. Look when it comes to Iran. He doesn't call the Iranians the names that he calls Bibi Netanyahu. So it's obvious. This man views the Jewish state and the Jewish people as the threat to peace in the Middle East. Because in the end, the enemy is America and its friends, including Israel. Now, what I don't get is this. When you have delegations coming in from countries all over the Middle East, when you had Mohammed Morsi, the head of the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamic terrorist organization that this administration installed in power, when Morsi went to visit the White House, 5-star dinner. I kid you not. It was, they rolled out the red carpet. It was a 5-6 course dinner. They gave him everything. They stopped at nothing. Bibi Netanyahu gets a turkey and Swiss cheese sandwich, and out through the back door, literally where they dump the garbage out at the White House. So now, when Israel is fighting for its very life, surrounded by Islamic monsters who want to annihilate it, what is the dear leader saying? He's telling Netanyahu, hey, whoa, slow down. We have somebody on our sales staff, I won't mention her name, very nice woman, but she talks about this. We talk. She's Jewish. She lives in Brookline. She's a liberal, a self-confessed liberal. And now she denies that she voted for Obama before she bragged about voting for Obama. And she came to Cooksey and I, this is a couple of weeks ago, she's like, oh my God. Oh my God. Did you see what happened to the Israeli teenagers? And did you see Obama's pathetic response? He doesn't care. He couldn't care less that Israelis are being slaughtered by Hamas. He couldn't care less. And I'm like, now you realize he doesn't care about the Jews or about the Jewish state? Now? We've been warning you about this for 6 years. Now you're shocked? Nothing should surprise you about this guy. We told you he was going to break the bank. We told you he was going to bankrupt this country. He's doing it. We told you he was going to open our borders to everybody. He's doing it. We told you he was going to abandon Iraq. He's doing it. We told you he was going to allow the Taliban to win in Afghanistan. He's doing it. We told you he's going to allow Iran to go nuclear. He's doing it. Everything that we've predicted about this guy has come true. I only feel sorry for that poor woman, Audrey, because now it's taken her 6 years. And I only hope that Rena is right, that is caller from Israel, that the people of Israel no longer give a damn what Obama says. That they don't even want Jean-Francois Kerry, a.k.a. Pepe Le Pew, to even show his face in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. It is now time for Bibi Netanyahu and the people of Israel to put Israel first, as it's time for us in America to put America first. 617-266-6868. Bruce, you're up next. Thanks for holding. Go ahead, Bruce.
Jeffrey.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, man, I'm glad you're back. You had some good cats in there taking your place.
Well, I heard, Bruce, because I was away, so I wasn't able to listen to anything. I heard Thursday and Friday was a disaster.
Oh, unbelievable.
They brought in, what's her name, Carolyn Fox or something?
Yeah, she was. I said to her like this, I go, hey, babe, she's cool. And I'll tell you something, she must have turned a lot of heads, even in the liberal side, that you know the people that listen in to the enemy, that's us. You know, we're the Hamas. Jesus.
I mean, there was a revolt on the Kuhner Country Facebook page. Oh my God, there was like a full-scale revolt. Apparently, she was some kind of a liberal shock jock. I mean, the stuff that Cooks. I got a briefing from him yesterday. Where did they find her? Where the hell did they find her?
Cooksy had a good time. But listen, I'm really, I'm not disappointed in Obama's reactions to Netanyahu, because he cares about those three that were murdered about as much as he cared about the people in Benghazi and any of our other guys that were killed in soft targets. And that's what they hide behind. Children in hospitals, just like the woman said. We know it. They've been doing it forever. They won't even show their face. They got no guts. They're out to slaughter, just like the PLO back in the days when they would hijack airplanes, and we should have killed them on the spot instead of letting them land somewhere and get released. And I don't know. I'm just I'm very beside myself right now about how our liberal media is dealing with us, because they don't care. They would rather have hummus with Hamas and party with these people that are murderers. Just plain out murderers.
Well, you nailed it. And thank you for that call, Bruce. Look, these are Islamist thugs. These are butchers. They sacrifice women. They sacrifice children. They butcher Jewish women, men, and children. They indiscriminately bomb. They send 11-year-old girls strapped with dynamite around their chest into Israeli cafes to blow people up. Those are the kinds of animals we're dealing with. And if I were Benjamin Netanyahu, I wouldn't give a damn what liberal opinion says. I wouldn't give a damn what the UN says. I wouldn't give a damn what Obama says. His job is to defend the interests and people of Israel, just as it is the job of the President of the United States to defend the interests and security of the American people. And instead, with this buffoon in the White House, with that criminal in the White House, he does the exact opposite. He thinks his job is to defend the interests and the security of the Muslim world. Hey, you want to run for global caliph? Go to Iraq. Apparently now ISIS is taking over large parts of the country. They've now declared themselves a new caliphate. You want to be the president of the new caliphate? Be my friend, dear leader. Go ahead. Be my guest. 617-266-6868, 751 on the Great WRKO. More with your calls next. 758 here on the Great WRKO. David, you're up next on the Kuhner Report. Go ahead, David.
Welcome back, Jeff.
It's great to be back. Thank you, David.
As an amateur political scientist, I don't think it's a good idea for any country to define itself in terms of religious principles or values. This is criticism of Iran, this is criticism of Saudi Arabia, and it's also criticism of Israel.
David, you mean that the fact that it's a Jewish state?
They call themselves a Jewish state. If they would emphasize instead their secular government, they would have fewer problems with their immediate neighbors.
Well, David, don't you think they just don't like the fact that they're a non-Muslim state? They could call themselves anything. They could call themselves the secular state of Israel. I mean, the Muslims wouldn't care. And David, I mean, to be fair, even to the Israelis, it's really more of an ethnic connotation. It's a state for the Jews of the world to have their own homeland.
You had a caller a half an hour ago named Reina who lives in Israel.
Yes.
She said that in Israel there are churches and mosques and
synagogues.
Jewish synagogues. Why do they call themselves a Jewish state to begin with?
Well, I mean, David, they're tolerant of Christians, they're tolerant of Muslims, but it's like Poland. Poland is a state for the Poles. Of course, you respect other minorities. It's like Russia. It's a state for Russians. Ireland is a state for the Irish. But you tolerate other minorities, ethnic minorities, religious minorities. But it's a place for the Jews. It's a Jewish homeland. It's a refuge for them from all the persecution they've endured over their history. So, no, David, I don't have a problem with them calling themselves the Jewish state. In fact, they're a model of democracy for everybody else in the region, and that's why they're hated. Because A, they're the only democracy in the region, and they're the only non-Muslim country in the region, and that's why they have to be wiped out. That's what people don't understand. Israel can give up the whole West Bank. They can give up Gaza. They can give up East Jerusalem. They could give and give and give and give. It's not enough. The Muslims want them gone. As far, maybe northern Manitoba, but that's about it. 617-266-6868, 8 o'clock on the Great WRKO. Let's take it to Angela in the newsroom.
News at the top and bottom. Talk in between.
Yes, it is. Thank me very much. Go right ahead, my friend.
This is AM 680 WRKO, Boston.